Welcome to our Trump Briefing Show. Today, we're diving into some hot topics from around the world. First up, Hamas has just released Edan Alexander, an American-Israeli soldier, after holding him hostage for over 19 months in Gaza. This move is seen as a goodwill gesture ahead of President Trump's Middle East trip, sparking hopes for peace talks, although the situation remains tense with Israel planning to escalate its Gaza offensive. Critics are watching closely as civilian casualties and humanitarian crises worsen. Next, President Trump has made a bold move in healthcare by signing an executive order that aims to lower prescription drug prices within 30 days. The plan ties U.S. drug costs to international prices, inspired by a story about a friend paying less in the UK. While Trump claims this will save taxpayers trillions, critics warn it could impact innovation and Medicare funding. The details are still unfolding, but the push for lower drug prices is definitely making waves. Finally, in a sign of global economic shifts, investors flooded Japan with a record $55 billion in April, buying stocks and bonds amid U.S.-China trade tensions and geopolitical uncertainties. This influx shows investors search for safe havens, though recent easing in trade tensions suggests the rush might slow down. Stay tuned as these stories develop, and please continue to watch for more detailed updates. The Toronto Star vividly captures the tense atmosphere in Gaza and Israel, where Hamas announced the release of Edan Alexander, a 21-year-old Israeli-American soldier, after being held for over 19 months. This gesture, described as a goodwill act toward the Trump administration, offers a glimmer of hope amid the ongoing brutal conflict. The story highlights the emotional scenes as Alexander's mother and grandmother await his return, while the Israeli military confirms he is with the Red Cross and en route to Israeli forces. The article underscores the devastating toll of the war, with Israel intensifying its military offensive, blocking aid into Gaza, and causing a severe humanitarian crisis, with fears of famine and widespread suffering among Gaza's 2 million residents. Despite the release, over 50,000 Palestinians have been killed, and countless civilians remain trapped in the cycle of violence, with critics questioning Israel's continued military escalation and the political motivations behind it. The Toronto Star further details the international diplomatic dance, emphasizing President Trump's role in the hostage release as a sign of potential progress toward ending the conflict. Trump hailed the release as a step taken in good faith, emphasizing the efforts of mediators like Qatar and Egypt, and expressing optimism for further negotiations. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government insists that no concessions have been made, only agreeing to a safe corridor for Alexander's release while planning to escalate military operations in Gaza. Criticism mounts against Netanyahu for not securing the release of all hostages, with some relatives and critics accusing him of political motives and insufficient action. The article paints a complex picture of diplomatic tension, military strategy, and the human cost of a war that has left thousands dead and millions displaced, with the specter of famine looming over Gaza. CNN's coverage provides a detailed narrative of the hostages' release, emphasizing the negotiations between Hamas and the U.S., and the broader context of the ongoing war. Hamas handed Edan Alexander over to the Red Cross, marking a significant breakthrough amid the chaos, just before President Trump's Middle East tour. Alexander's family describes him as a lively, humorous young man, and their relief is palpable as they prepare to reunite. The report highlights the ongoing suffering in Gaza, where Israel's blockade has pushed the region to the brink of famine, with aid supplies dwindling and hospitals overwhelmed. Despite the release, more than 50 hostages remain captive, and the conflict's toll continues to rise, with international organizations condemning Israel's blockade as a war crime. The story underscores the delicate interplay of diplomacy and warfare, with hopes that this release might catalyze broader negotiations to free all hostages and restore peace in the region. The Toronto Star reports that President Donald Trump has enacted a broad executive order aimed at reducing prescription drug prices in the United States by setting a 30-day deadline for pharmaceutical companies to lower their prices or face government-imposed limits. The order instructs the Department of Health and Human Services to negotiate new drug prices, ultimately linking U.S. payments to the lower prices paid by other countries, primarily those with single-payer health systems like in Europe. Trump's initiative, dubbed the Most Favored Nation approach, faces resistance from the pharmaceutical industry, which argues it could threaten research investments and lead to reliance on foreign medicines. Despite his claims of saving trillions of dollars and making healthcare more affordable, critics question the feasibility and potential impact of the plan, especially since it primarily targets Medicare and Medicaid, leaving the private insurance sector largely unaffected. Trump's previous efforts to implement similar policies have faced legal obstacles, and the executive order's actual effects remain uncertain. The Independent adds that Trump's drug price control plan was inspired by a personal anecdote involving a friend in London who paid significantly less for a weight loss medication than Americans do. Trump recounted that he was shocked to learn he could buy the same medication in London for $88, while in New York, it cost $1,300, despite being manufactured in the same plant. Citing this disparity, he announced plans to impose a most favored nation policy, demanding that American drug prices match those of other developed nations with single-payer systems. Trump also threatened to retaliate against foreign countries by restricting imports if they do not comply with his demands, and he ordered investigations into foreign nations allegedly extorting drug companies by refusing to sell medications unless they accept low prices. This approach, however, raises questions about its legality and the differences between the U.S. healthcare system, which relies heavily on private insurers, and European countries that leverage government negotiations to secure lower drug costs. The plan aims to dramatically cut drug prices, with Trump claiming it could reduce costs by up to 80%, though critics remain skeptical about the practicality and potential consequences of such sweeping measures. CNN reports that President Donald Trump's recent Middle East trip has once again highlighted the strained relationship between the United States and Israel. Unlike Barack Obama's 2009 visit, which notably excluded Israel from his itinerary, Trump's current plans omit a stop in Jerusalem or Tel Aviv, fueling Israeli concerns over the U.S. administration's priorities amid ongoing conflicts in Gaza. Despite Netanyahu's efforts to secure a visit, Trump's focus remains on Gulf nations like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE, where he seeks to bolster regional alliances and promote a shared vision of stability. With no tangible achievements such as a ceasefire or hostage negotiations to showcase, Trump's reluctance to visit Israel underscores a broader shift in U.S.-Israel relations, leaving Netanyahu feeling sidelined and uncertain about future cooperation. Nikkei Asia highlights the record inflow of foreign investment into Japan in April, driven by global uncertainty over U.S. trade policies under Trump's administration. International investors poured a staggering $55.4 billion into Japanese stocks and bonds, seeking refuge amid turbulent U.S. markets and unpredictable tariffs. The surge was fueled by concerns over Trump's shifting trade stance and his attacks on the Federal Reserve, prompting a flight to Japanese assets, which temporarily boosted the Nikkei index to 36,000. However, analysts warn that this rush may be temporary, as the underlying factors, such as easing of tariffs and stabilization of U.S. policies, diminish, suggesting that the inflows could slow down. The movement reflects broader global anxieties about U.S. trade tensions and their impact on international markets. The Independent explores the possibility of Donald Trump remaining in office beyond his constitutional term limits, drawing parallels with Latin American leaders who have extended their rule through constitutional amendments, judicial support, and military backing. While the U.S. Constitution's two-term limit has historically been respected, some countries, like Nicaragua and Venezuela, have successfully circumvented these restrictions, often with high public support and military complicity. Trump's low approval ratings and the politicization of U.S. institutions raise concerns about the potential for similar efforts domestically. Experts warn that, unlike in Latin America, the U.S. benefits from a tradition of military neutrality and constitutional protections, but the increasing polarization and erosion of norms pose risks. Vigilance remains essential to prevent democratic backsliding and safeguard the nation's constitutional order. The South China Morning Post reports that Hamas has claimed the release of Edan Alexander, an American-Israeli soldier held hostage in Gaza for over 19 months, marking a rare gesture of goodwill amid ongoing conflict, though Israel has yet to confirm this. Alexander was seized during Hamas' October 7 attack on southern Israel, which ignited a brutal war with Gaza, where Israel has since intensified its military campaign, including a blockade that has worsened a humanitarian crisis. The release, seen as a potential step toward a ceasefire, comes as U.S. President Donald Trump, on his Middle East trip, praised it as a hopeful move and a sign of progress by mediators Qatar and Egypt. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, meanwhile, has sent a team to Doha for negotiations but insists no concessions, such as a ceasefire or prisoner swaps, will be made until after Israel completes its military escalation, which it plans to delay until Trump's visit concludes. Critics accuse Netanyahu of politicizing the hostage issue and relying on foreign mediators, while Hamas's announcement has sparked hope among families of other captives, emphasizing the urgent need for all hostages to be freed. The ongoing Israeli offensive has resulted in massive destruction and displacement in Gaza, with over 52,800 Palestinians killed, according to Gaza's health authorities, as Israel seeks to dismantle Hamas and achieve its strategic goals amidst mounting international scrutiny. According to the Toronto Star, in a momentous development in Geneva, the United States and China agreed to temporarily reduce their soaring tariffs, igniting hope in global markets. This 90-day pause in hostilities, where the U.S. cut its 145% tariff on Chinese goods to 30% and China lowered its tariffs on U.S. products from 125% to 10%, marks a significant de-escalation, yet leaves underlying tensions unresolved. The negotiations, conducted over at least a dozen hours amid the picturesque Swiss landscape, fostered a cautious optimism as both sides expressed a desire to continue dialogue, with officials hinting at further talks in the coming weeks. While markets responded exuberantly, futures soaring and oil prices climbing, the underlying uncertainty persists, with experts warning that the truce might not lead to a lasting peace. Economists like Danny Roderick pointed out that despite the reduction, tariffs remain high enough to harm U.S. consumers, and some analysts suggested that both nations are more economically constrained than they admit, driven by internal pressures like China's export declines and market concerns. Business leaders such as Jay Foreman expressed relief but remain wary, hoping for further tariff reductions, while the broader global economy sees this as a cautious step forward amid ongoing tensions and strategic competition. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.